HTC has unveiled the J Butterfly with somewhat over-the-top 5-inch 1080p Super LCD3 display, effectively 440 pixels per inch, which is just crazy. Specs for specs' sake? It's powered by a quad-core Snapdragon S4 processor clocked at 1.5 gig with 2 GB of RAM. There's 16 GB internal memory along with a micro SD card slot. An 8-megapixel camera with 1080p video recording matches the display at least. There's LTE and NFC and is all dust and waterproof. Android 4.1 Jelly Bean out of the box, which is good. But the bad news is that the J in J Butterfly name is for Japan. Plans to release this more widely haven't been announced yet. U Butterfly, anyone? Asus has introduced the Padphone 2 with a high-spec smartphone slipping into a tablet shell to provide its heart and brain. The phone bit has a 4.7-inch 720p Super IPS Plus panel, a quad-core processor, 2 GB of RAM, NFC LTE and a 13-megapixel camera, all sadly still running Ice Cream Sandwich out of the box. The tablet component is a 10-inch 1280 by 800 IPS display with 5000 mAh battery, supplementing and charging the phones. This was mentioned in a recent phone show chat, but here are hands-on photos of the Jelly Bean running Oppo Find 5, yet another 5-inch 1080p screen device. I'm sorry, but this trend is getting out of hand. 1.5 GHz quad-core chipset with 2 GB of RAM, a metal build at 7mm thick, a 2500 mAh battery and a 12-megapixel camera. Impress, in theory, and Clever Money says that we'll be seeing this in the West shortly. This is the Motorola RAZR I, or RAZR M if you're in America. First impressions are incredible. Bucking the trend to be as large as possible, the RAZR I instead opts to show as much screen as possible while being as small as possible. In this case, a 4.3-inch QHD Super AMOLED screen in a significantly smaller body in every dimension to the older Galaxy S, which had a 4-inch screen, and this is a very similar size to the very old 3.7-inch screen to Nexus 1. Very impressive. In fact, Motorola could have pushed the boat out further if they'd wanted to, seeing as there's still a good 7mm of bezel wasted at the bottom, though I do acknowledge that the screen aspect ratio would have had to change slightly. The materials are super premium too. Gorilla Glass on the front, Kevlar on the back, very solid plastic frame around which I suspect is a metal chassis, and all the internals covered in a splash guard coating, meaning that this baby is fully waterproof too. I'm not going to test it as it's Tim's personal phone and I don't want to risk it even a little bit. This then is an Android 4.0 phone, but one which will get Jelly Bean very soon, courtesy of Google's ownership of Motorola. Tim and I will hang on to it until Jelly Bean arrives and report back on the Phone Show Chat podcast. It's pretty fast and slick as it is though, with a single core 2 GHz Intel processor in this I version and 1 GB of RAM, plus a manufacturer's skin that's relatively light. What has been changed here is mainly in the interests of helping new users. Check out this Add a Home Screen template-based wizard for beginners who want some ideas of what to put on their home panorama, up to an additional 6 screens. Swipe to the left and there's a helpful quick settings pane here, though I'd really rather have all these toggles on the drop-down Android pane so that I can get to them from anywhere in the UI. Other beginner aids and wizards are here in the Guide Me interactive manual and in the Smart Action setup, helping to automate many of the settings here based on location, time of day and connectivity status. You'll have spotted that pure Android virtual control icons are present. As you know, I love these as they do change as needed and they get out of the way when you're playing media to maximize the display area. Very, very nice. The most obvious frontal addition to the interface is a simple but effective circles widget here. Nothing to do with Google+, though that would have been cool too, but rather a selection of clocks and weather for various cities of your choice around the world, plus a circle for the notifications of your choice, e.g. 2 missed calls. The lock screen here, as is the convention these days, offers multiple unlock swipes to camera, phone, messages, or just plain unlock. Other than the additions already mentioned, you've seen most of this before. It's virtually vanilla Ice Cream Sandwich. Of the few application additions, Quick Office impresses by being the very latest version with full editing capabilities and wide file format compatibility. Plus there's vehicle mode, similar to Nokia's car mode and providing big buttoned versions of common car-centric functions, navigation, hands-free telephony, and so on. Apart from these, you're free to load it up just as you would any other Android smartphone with the applications of your choice. But let's get serious with the hardware here. Can the RAZR I impress me? The first step for users is also the clumsiest, with the microSIM being embedded so deep inside a slot in the RAZR I's body that a special plastic product has to be provided to poke it in fully. Clumsy, making the RAZR I not for serial SIM swappers like me, but most people won't have to do this too often. Around the other side, the wake power button is side mounted with an easy reach of my right thumb, Samsung style, yay. On the back there's a decent speaker. It's not the best I've ever heard, but definitely good enough for most users. The screen itself is gorgeous, as you can see here in this movie. Super AMOLED always looks great against the black body. You won't find Motorola making a pink or white phone. On the back is a pretty decent 8 megapixel camera with a twist. Just as on the iPhone 4, etc., HDR, high dynamic range functionality is built in and hardware accelerated, which means that several shots get taken very quickly and combined to show the most detail in both light and dark areas. The results can be startling, with the world appearing larger than life in a Disney-esque, everything's so wonderful and colourful way, as shown here. As a photo purist, I'm a little shocked, but I couldn't help but smile at some of the results, here livening up a photo shoot on a miserably dull UK day.
Test video footage here on the Motorola RAZR I. Full 1080p and pretty good autofocus as well, but is the Intel processor up to the job? Looking again at autofocus.
There's NFC built in, near field communications, so RAZR I buyer is future-proofed, waiting for the NFC scene to really take off. Though there's no LTE support, which may bother some of you. Mind you, the battery might cope with things like streaming video over cellular, 2000 milliamp hours. Quite impressive given the RAZR I's thin form factor. There's one gotcha though, the battery here is sealed, a pet hate of mine. Mind you, 6 screws around the perimeter. I wonder what happens if I undo them all. Now, Tim would kill me if I messed up this 2-week-old phone of his. Only one gotcha in a Steve Litchfield review. I must love this thing, and I do. Motorola has done a fabulous job with this design and implementation. For all those who don't really want to live at the 4.8-inch screen bleeding edge, this modest-looking RAZR I punches well above its weight in almost every way. A big recommendation and a candidate for my next top 5, I think.